Morning and welcome to Cross Point Community Church. I'm Danny Weddle along with Kelly Ferris. Super Bowl Sunday means Super Bowl service here at Cross Point.
It's a great day, Danny. We've looked forward to it all week. There's been a lot of build-up, a lot of talk on social media. It's a big deal, I guess. We'll let them decide that.
We have to try to live up to the hype.
That's right. One thing, you always look at the weather forecast for Super Bowl Sunday, and pretty chilly outside, but inside the friendly confines of Cross Point, it's a balmy 72. It looks good out there. One thing I did notice, there's a lot of ex-athletes out in the crowd today, Danny.
For sure.
Football players, basketball players, a lot of great ex-athletes. And Scott Skaggs is here. So we got that going for us.
And behind the scenes, we have a great starting lineup, the people that really make this thing happen. We're going to check out those starters right now.
Cindy Froge, Campbellsville University.
Katie Thacker, I went to Heron School of Art and Design.
Paul Conrad, Anderson University.
I'm Joshua Coleman, Mason County High School.
Austin Berry, Kentucky Christian University.
Jeff Froge, the Campbellsville University.
Steve Carlisle, the Eastern Kentucky University.
Heather Berry, Kentucky Christian University.
My name is Scott Compton, and I went to Morehead State University.
John Fulton, the Morehead State University.
What a crew.
Pretty strong. There's a couple suspect folks on there, but I think we'll push through, Danny.
I think we're in good hands. Kelly, you played a lot of sports, a lot of cliches, a lot of slogans I know that you heard in practices and stuff. One of them, no pain, no gain. You ever hear that?
I heard that frequently from Alan Feldhouse in the old days. Yeah, sure did.
And we have Payne this morning. Brian Payne, who's going to handle the coin toss. Brian?
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Kelly. Never heard that phrase before. Great to be here. One of the things I love about Super Bowl Sunday is, the crowd and being able to just speak with folks and all the celebrities that you see come in just for, Super Bowl Sunday. I'm going to do coin toss today, and I'm going to ask our local celebrity, Brandon Conrad. You may remember him. He was Cross Point's youth intern over this past Sunday. Give it up for Brandon. All right, Brandon, here at Cross Point, we just flip a coin for really no reason at all because we don't need this, but it's a lot of fun, and it takes up some time. So I want you to call this in the air, all right? No, wait a minute. Let me think. Call it now. What's it going to be?
Wait. Okay.
I'm running this show. Call now.
Wait. Okay.
Heads or tails?
I bet it's going to be heads.
Like right now.
Heads. Let's go.
You sure?
Yeah, flip it.
All right, here we go. All right, back to you guys.
The meaningless coin toss has been successful, Danny.
I guess we can start now. Our quarterback is Pastor Kevin Jack. Let's talk about some of the keys to the service, some of his strengths.
Yeah, Kevin's a great speaker, very knowledgeable, very well-read guy. We don't want to build him up too much. Very organized, but the highlight of his sports career was probably dodgeball as a seventh grader, so that's not too great on the old resume. But other than that, he's a great pastor, and we're lucky to have him.
Yeah, I think he's going to be able to move in the pocket today, think on his feet, and let's just see what he's got. Here's Kevin.
Well, hey, we are thrilled you're joining us this morning for it. And we're going to go ahead and pray to get started because I've seen the order from here on out, and it doesn't fit anywhere else. So let's go ahead and pray. Lord, we thank you for this chance together here today to have fun. To enjoy the company of one another. But Lord, I ask most of all that in the time that we have together, that you will speak truth to us, that through the interviews that we're going to have, through the different stories that are going to be shared, that we will see something about our lives and about you that will help us follow you closer in everything that we do. We pray this in the name of your son, Jesus. Amen. So we started this last year doing this special thing on a Super Bowl. And this year we wanted to do it with the title of Why Sports Matter. And before we really get into why sports matter, I just want to ask, do sports matter? Like in our culture, do sports matter? And I think for most of us, we would go, yeah, maybe a little too much. And I want to show you some evidence of that. Sports today, we see excessive celebrations over extremely ordinary things. This is one of my favorite pictures of the excessive celebrations that we encounter. And the intriguing thing that we see about sports today, especially in professional circles, is we see people like showboat things that they are paid to do. So the equivalent would be like, if you did a touchdown dance when you filled a cavity, or if you dabbed after grading papers, Or for me, it would be the equivalent of after someone comes into the office and I pray for them, then promptly standing up and spiking my Bible, which would be awesome. But we see these things like this sense of like athletes today of just such an excessive amount for things that it is their job requirement to do. And then it's also how we talk about them. So we take the best of our athletes and we enshrine them for all eternity. So what we do is we take them in the Hall of Fame and we take a bronze bust of their own head so that it can exist for all eternity. And it's not just that, it's the language that we use about it of they're going to be remembered forever. They're going to go down in history as one of the greats. And we have this assumption today that the things that we're doing in sports and athletics will be remembered forever. Now, I think it's important that we pause there because professional sports, as we know them, have now existed in two different centuries, in the 21st and in the 20th century. And I want to ask you, this is not the first time sports have existed. Professional sports, as we know them in the 20th and 21st centuries, but sports have been around for a really, really long time. So I ask you, do you know who the greatest athlete was of the 19th century? You don't. So why do we assume that what we're doing today will be remembered forever? Or I could ask it like this, maybe some of our most famous athletes. Do you know who the greatest gladiator ever was? And you would answer, of course, it's Maximus Aurelius. But other than that, we don't really know anybody. And so we've got this excessive amount of what we're doing now matters for all eternity. The other side is the role that parents play. Signs like this are beginning to frequent youth sports field that says, I'm a kid, it's just a game, my coach is a volunteer, the officials are human, and no college scholarships will be handed out today. As a reminder to parents to chill out, to take it a little easier. And so we have this landscape of if we would say, okay, so do sports matter? We would have to answer, yeah, probably too much. And so the question would be, why are we spending a whole Sunday devoted to talking about sports? And the reality is a couple things. That I believe that while we are having this, I would just say, a sports craze culture to an excessive amount, that it is important for us as a church to have conversations about things that matter in our culture. Now, we're not going to change the whole culture as a whole at once, but we can change ourselves in how we approach it. And by simply ignoring these different things that matter, or just criticizing these different things that matter, we lose our voice in the conversation. And so that's what we want to do today, is we want to have a conversation about sports and how to utilize sports, how to use them for good, how to have them be positive impacts on everyone's life instead of negative. And the other side of that is that we believe that sports can do a lot of good in people's lives. Sports can teach values, they can teach character, they can instill incredible values and traits in people. Now, they're not the only thing that can do that. As we were talking about this as a staff and prepping this out, the question was asked well, it's not just sports that do that, anything that's difficult does that, math does that. Why don't we do a Sunday titled, Why Math Matters? And I said, if we lived in a math craze culture where people were rooting each other on and getting foam fingers for algebra problems, then we would do that. But that's not the society that we live in. And so this is what we're going to do today is we're going to share a couple things. I'm going to have a couple interviews up here. We're going to have a fantastic halftime show that the one tonight will pale in comparison to. And then I'm going to up here at the end and just close with a simple story. But our hope is that from the time that we spend together today, that this will start a conversation that can help us approach the different sports that we engage in personally, that we may coach, and that we may be parents of our kids being involved in, that we can approach it with a soundness of mind and an understanding of how to do this well and how to use it for good. And so before we get into all that, I want to start with a model. I don't know how many of you are aware of Coach John Wooden. John Wooden was the coach of the UCLA Bruins. And I just want to quickly run you through some of his accomplishments. First, his accomplishments as a basketball player in high school. 3 times he was All-State as a basketball player. Their team was the state runner-up twice and the state champion once. And then he went on and played basketball in college, and this is what he did in college. 3 times he was named an All-American. It probably would have been 4 times, but freshmen didn't play at the time. So he was named an All-American every year that he entered the game. They won the national championship 1 time as a player, and the year that they won the national championship, he scored 1/3 of his team's points. That's really impressive. But he is best known not for his role as a player, but his role as a coach, particularly the coach of the UCLA Bruins. While he was the coach of the Bruins, he had a record of 620 wins and 147 losses over 20 seasons. The most notable accomplishments is he won 10 national championships in that time. 7 of them were in a row. In his time as a coach, he had 4 undefeated seasons, and at one point in time, his team had 88 straight wins, which is like incredible. So he had an incredible role as a player and incredibly gifted, but as a coach, he is second to none. And so you would assume that like if there was anyone who was overly enthusiastic about sports, it would be John Wooden. But the interesting thing about Coach Wooden is he did not see himself as a coach. If you would ask him, what's his role, what does he do? He would have said, not that he's a coach, but that he was a teacher. And we would go, yeah, you're a teacher of basketball. He would go, no, I'm not a teacher of basketball. This is what he viewed himself as a teacher of. This is something that he created called the Pyramid of Success. And what he sought to do is year after year to take these values and take these abilities and instill them in his players to value them far more as people than as basketball players. And so if I could just show you through the bottom row, he wanted to teach them industriousness and friendship and loyalty and cooperation and enthusiasm. And he saw every opportunity, took every opportunity he possibly could to instill these values into different people's lives. And what he did is he used his faith as part of it. He often had a Bible verse associated with every single value and took every opportunity he had to teach these things. And he saw as the ultimate success throughout this as being success. And we go, okay, so success is winning championships. It's winning 10 national championships, having 4 undefeated seasons. But this is how one of the winningest coaches in college basketball history defined success. This is what he said success was. Success is peace of mind that is the direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you did your best to become the best that you are capable of becoming. You are the only one who knows whether you have won. You may be better than the rest, but you are not a success until you have made the effort to become the best you can be. Isn't that amazing? Now, this is what I see. As I see, like, parents will have their kids go to games, or coaches will have their kids play, and they will play subpar. They will give subpar efforts, but they'll win. And the conversation will be, at least we won. Or if we lose, and we'll say maybe there's a game where you're outmatched, you're not as good, and parents will watch as their kids absolute best effort, do as good as they can, but they come out on the losing end. And we almost say this just like a subtle silver lining. Like, hey, at least you did your best. At least you tried your hardest. You didn't win, which is what really matters, but at least you did your best. And I wonder, what if we actually meant that? But what if we valued people's performance in games far more on the character values and attributes that they showed than what ended up on the scoreboard? I was at a meeting recently, and I had a conversation with a guy. They were discussing the story that had happened over the weekend. The man was a grandfather, and he went to attend the game of one of his grandchildren who was in elementary school. And he was displeased with the officials' performance during the game. And so he got up and he started yelling at the officials during this elementary school game. And so after much yelling, the officials kicked him out of the game. And he was proud of it. And his response was, they were doing a horrible job, and somebody should have let them know what a terrible job that they were doing. That he had put his excessive focus on the scoreboard, and he viewed it as accomplishment. And we thought, what if we started doing it differently? And this is one of the things we're going to talk about today, is what if we saw sports as just a game? But within that, it had incredible power to do good in people's lives. That within that, it had an incredible power to teach people about hard work and what it meant to win well and what it meant to lose with dignity and what it meant to apply discipline and hard work to everything that you did as you gained skills and as you learned how to be selfless and bond with a team. Like, what if we saw that for the potential that they had, but that would only be the case if we saw that it was just a game? That if it became anything more than that, it would lose its power to do good. So my hope this morning is what can happen with the hour that we have together is we can start a conversation about what does it look like to approach sports well, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a parent, or whether you're a coach. And so I hope you'll enjoy our time together, and back to you guys in the booth.
And you can read about Coach Wooden's pyramid of success in his book. Flawless first quarter?
It was very clean, Danny. Kevin does a great job, and he did the first quarter today. Although, I just did notice.
Oh, my. Challenge flag.
Challenge flag on the stage.
Where's Brian Payne?
This is it's interesting. I've never seen those thrown without a penalty. This is a challenge, folks. It's like it come from this direction here. Sir, would you mind standing up? What's your name?
My name's Scott.
Scott, interesting. Those things, as I said, are normally thrown for penalties. What are you challenging?
Well, these were supposed to be the best seats in the house, and that dude spits when he talks.
Ooh, yeah, a spitting accusation. Well, I mean, when you say success as much as he did, that's usually going to happen. Like if I said success a lot, sitting beside you, that could happen. So what's the big deal?
He spit on me.
Oh, we may have to go to the monitor for this, guys.
Yeah, let's check the review.
I have never seen this.
There it is again.
I think we're going to have to overturn that one, guys. My bad. I did not realize it was. Woo, man, that's a lot of saliva. Lot of saliva.
We'll have to get Kevin toweled off, and maybe Scott too, I guess. And
thank you. We appreciate you bringing that to our attention, Scott. Hope the rest of your day is much more successful.
Now, the big question, Kelly, can Kevin recover from this?
We shall see. Time will tell, Danny. We'll see in the second quarter.
Well, as he mentioned, former Mason County football coach David Buchanan is going to be his guest here in the second quarter. Coach Buchanan spent 19 seasons as the Mason County Royals head football coach. He returned to his home school of Mercer County this past year. I worked a lot with Coach Buchanan, a great person. And you know, Kelly, from where the football program came from when you played and how Coach Buchanan elevated it. We reached #1, region championships, just great success.
Yeah, he raised the bar greatly in our community with our high school football program. And along the way, the great part about Coach is he taught the kids how to be good people. And what's funny about Coach, he has a lot of great attributes, but, there's always a flaw in everyone, right? So, as great as a guy as he is, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. 4-year-old girls have less dental fear than Coach B. Wow. So that's all I got to say about that.
Back to Kevin.
Dangerous than being on the stage when Kelly Ferris has a mic. So, Coach, we're so glad that you're here today. Just out of curiosity, I know there's a lot. How many people played for Coach Buchanan? I know that's awesome. All right, so first off, let's get to it because I got a lot I want to ask you, and I'm sure a lot you want to share. What made you want to be a coach?
I'd share this. But my dad had been a coach and a history teacher, and I had a lot of admiration, respect. But really, sort of where it came together one summer at the Fellowship of Christian Athletes Conference, Coach Jimmy Sharp, that played for Bear Bryant, coach at Virginia Tech, he's sharing on team building and said, if you're going to win championships, players love the players love the coaches love the players. And he went through the whole list. And I'd been part of a lot of dysfunction. And so I raised my hand in this crowded room and I say, Coach, how do you get that to happen on your team? He says, you love them first. And it was really cool. I felt it was a calling at that time to go into coaching. And even though my dad had been a coach, he really didn't want me to coach. He wanted me to have an easier life, I think, make some more money and that kind of thing. He was in the car business by then, but I felt like it was a calling. And as I've shared before, I think really to coach, it has to be a calling, and it's got to be about more than winning because, I can't justify to Stephanie and my family how much I'm gone if we're not doing more than trying to win ball games.
Oh, that's awesome. I love how you talk about that as a calling, and I've talked to you about that before, and I think that's just wonderful to see the value and importance you have in kids' lives on that. So, I know we're going to talk about how sports are positive impacts in people's life, how it can build it up. But first, I want to go to the end of what's too far. And I know you're someone who's very passionate about your sport. So, what would you say, whether there's an actual boundary or just kind of an understood boundary? When do we take sports too far?
Well, I used to take this for granted because my dad coached the way it should be done, and then I worked for guys that did it the right way. But it was always sort of standard with us that it was our faith first, then our family, and then education, and then football. And when football knocks out those other three or moves above those three, then it's become too much. So, and I've come to realize more and more, not everybody operates like that. And I don't want my children to play in that kind of program. But the ones that do operate like that, and those are the ones that I've been a part of, and that's what Mason County still has with Jonathan Thomas and his staff. Those guys are absolutely wonderful. Those are your priorities, and when that gets out of line, then it's become too much.
That's awesome. I want to, before we go any further, is that a Fran Tarkenton jersey?
Yes. Sadly, got to the big game. Let's see, the Raiders. Where's Strasburg? Yes, that's right, the Raiders. The Steelers and the Dolphins got us, but when Bart Starr hung up, that's how old I am. I remember Bart Starr and the Packers. When Bart left the Packers and I was without a team, it became the Vikings and Fran Tarkenton, and never did move on after that. So
that's okay.
My culture is dying, but that's okay.
That's awesome. Okay, so you talk about when we take it too far, but sports definitely have a positive impact on people's lives. How have you seen that?
It's something I could speak for hours on. I shared this earlier. As I shared, just like we've never found God's word to be false.
I agree.
I think the life lessons that we gain from, and for me it's more so football. They match up, they fit, and I shared this. When I was in high school, I really wasn't a very good player, but I loved playing high school football. And there were several times that I just got the crap beat out of me playing quarterback. And amazingly, those are still happy memories. I loved playing, and and I loved when things would go well. But here at 50 years old. What we've been through with losing my dad, the big change, leaving a home I love, being 0-5, it was a lot like those Friday nights when you're getting hammered, which was, I just got my teeth kicked in, but it's a new day. I'm going to get up just like it's a new play. I'm going to go be who I am, which is John Buchanan's son, a follower of Jesus Christ. And I don't really know how this is going to turn out today, but I'm going to trust him, and I'm going to go be and do what it's about and what he's about and follow him. And it's been fascinating because as a 50-year-old man, I'm drawing on lessons that, I experienced as a 17-year-old kid.
Oh, that's fantastic. Why do you see that? Why does that happen through sports when it doesn't always happen through other avenues? What's special about sports within that?
Well, I think that, for example, with football, if you want success as a football player, the team has to come first. And I see the Groots that's here, and I could pick out a lot of others. But, like when Dustin was our quarterback, he's a talented guy. But what people forget is he's a team-first guy. And whether it was in running our offense or also playing defensive back, or if it was kicking a PAT, it was whatever we needed to do to help us win. That's what he was going to do, and that's what he was about. And if you put the team first and the team has success, then the individual gets rewarded. And I like that it's built in like that. And that's the other thing, too. There's a lot of physical sports out there. Football, to me, is special because it's a very physical, tough sport, but it's team-oriented. And it forces you to be unselfish, to be successful. And so Dustin, this talented guy who puts the team first, and then he gets a scholarship, Division I BCS scholarship, and has a great career, and then goes on to even better things. And I like that part about football, that to be successful, I've got to put the team first. And, there's a lot of things with that at least, and I know for me in looking at football, that I think it matches up.
That's awesome. It's interesting you saying that. We're doing a series in May on marriage. And it's same principle, same idea of hey, you have to put the other people first. That's how it's successful.
Well, and I'm very blessed. You know, as I shared, one of my players one time referred to my coaching at Mason County as a ministry. And as much as I've been around great coaches and players, no one has been more unselfish than Stephanie, and taking care of our family and everything good that's happened for me in coaching and football and with these kids, it goes back to her, and she doing a lot of the dirty work and taking care of these kids while, you know, I'm trying to love and take care of other people's kids.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah. Me too, in case of Bethany's hair. Let's get that in there. So you talk about your player commenting, seeing your role coaching as a ministry, and you worked in a public school where that divide between faith, teacher, coach, all that stuff is, some people want to hold fast to it. Sometimes it's blurry. How did you seek to incorporate your faith into what you did as a coach?
The first thing is that I needed to, which I still deal a lot with pride, ego, selfishness. I'm still fighting those battles on a constant basis. But what I would try to do is get me out of the way and let Jesus love my kids, let Jesus try to touch the lives and treat people in a Christ-like manner. I thought that was by far the most important thing. I had to be careful sometimes how I would verbalize things, but I also tried always hard, though, that if I got a question and an opportunity, that I could give an honest answer. And I felt like if that happened, that it was okay. And then the other thing that I always tried to do is through Fellowship of Christian Athletes, get our guys in touch with other Christians and get them Bibles, but use every avenue I could, because I did, even though I had to watch that stuff, I was sort of in control of the door. And I was going to open up that door to FCA and pastors in every way that I could so that other followers of Christ could come into contact with my kids.
That's awesome. That's great. Don't always have to say it, but you can lead people down that path.
Well, and you know, and I think, too, just like with you as a pastor and me as a coach, I had to come to the realization that, you know what, I might not pray and lead every kid to Christ or so forth, but you know what, if I can be the vehicle that this young man meets this pastor or this young man goes to FCA camp, then God's used me in that role, and I'm thankful for that. And really, I think that's good too, because I think everything that I can do that becomes less and less about me is a positive.
That's awesome. So with that said, just a couple quick questions. What advice would you give to young athletes who are here today?
I would tell them to enjoy it, enjoy playing. I know I'm going to speak for John Combs here, and we're really working hard with Trosper not to repeat this. John Combs and I had to really battle to keep football fun and not let it turn into we had to be successful and we had to win. And I still want us to be the best, and I want us to win a state championship and be the best we can. But I think that's a battle that you really have got to be aware of, and you've got to say, okay, now I want to be the best, I want to win a championship, but it can't get to the point that it's not still fun, because we're all there because we saw our heroes and we go in the backyard and we don't want to be like them. And I would tell those kids to enjoy it, and I feel more comfortable saying this because it doesn't come across self-serving, but every young man in Mason County, they need to play football for Jonathan Thomas and that staff. They've got an opportunity for a great experience. As I find out more and more, not everybody operates like we do, like they did. And you're going to play in a great program. And I think if you're a young guy and you got a chance to play football for Jonathan Thomas at Mason County, I think you need to do that. And I think you'll be glad that you did.
That's awesome. Let me ask, on that note of playing football, coaching in a sport that is under more and more scrutiny when it comes to concussions and things like that, and you guys experience some of that as a family, what would your comments on that be?
I think that it's overblown,
okay,
even though we experienced it. And you know, as we dealt with it, you know, it's ironic because really what John Combs went through, I think there have been a lot of times. Now, look, I'm not a doctor, and I don't want to get anybody aggravated with
Neither is Kelly.
No, I didn't say that. But
finally got one in on him.
I know.
It's been 5 years.
Hey, he's going to have that. Hey, I'm not going to say nothing bad. He'll have that sharp. I'm not messing with it.
All right, keep going. Sorry.
You know, John Combs is 2 concussions were significant.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see sort of what he went through and dealt with versus what others were that were diagnosed concussions. I think it's overblown. I think you've got to use some common sense. Now, when we got to the point that the neurologist said his football needs to be over, then he's finished. But I think he would tell you now that his experiences, he got the things that he enjoyed. He got to be first team All-State, played on some really good teams with his friends. But the life lessons too, I don't think he's going to run into a whole lot in life that he's going to feel overwhelmed with if he'll really step back and think about what he's already done. So I'm glad that he's had that experience. And, I would, look, I'd take care of my body and I would use common sense. But the positives so far outweigh. And the other thing, too, look, I love Trosper, and he's going to be a good football player. But if you look at Trosper's helmet after a season of football, he's okay. Yeah. Don't compare a high school football player to these guys that play linebacker in the NFL for 10 seasons. There's no comparison with the hits those guys are taking. And high school football is a long, long way. Don't compare it to the guys that you see because the level of contact and the hits are totally different. It's not even close.
That's great. John Combs, you'll be glad to know this. In the 8:30 service, we were going through it, and he said, you have to listen to the doctors, and sometimes when they tell you, you just have to know it's time to pull the plug. I was like, meaning get him out of football.
Yeah, they thought, we're taking off life support. It was not.
He's just walking around out there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's young athletes. What advice would you give to parents?
I would say this. We say this a lot in our program, and Emma loves this. So when I'll bring this up, I'll say, Emma said, I left Mercer County in 1982. Would you tell them to take my picture down from when I played quarterback in the cheerleading room? And she gets mad. And she shakes her head. She says, Dad, your picture's not up there, and we do not have a cheerleading room. But my point, though, is this, and I say this all the time. My time was not, and I wasn't very good, but I loved high school football. My time was 1982, and I would say this to the parents. This is their time. It's not your time. When I went to Mercer, D. Smith was one of my players. His dad, Donald Wayne, and I played against each other in high school, and we're good friends. And I talked to D first. I'm like, look, this is your time. How do you feel about your dad coaching you? And he said, Coach, I think it'll be fine. It'll be all right. But he went back and he told his dad, he said, hey, Dad, he said, I got veto power over you. He said, if I don't want you coaching, I'm going to get you. And it wasn't really quite like that. But I did really think about, I want D, because this is all he's got. And that's a big theme with us is that, guys, it's not my time. My time's over. This is your time. And that's what I would say to the parents is let these guys and girls, let them have their time. And please understand, it's not about you, and it's not your time. Because their day's coming. They're going to be paying the bills, and they're going to be dealing with all the things that go with being an adult. They don't have to do that right now. Let's let them have that fun and enjoy it.
That's awesome. All right, last off, who do you got tonight?
Man, I'm hoping if there's anybody that can handle, and I think it would be playing his last game and winning and handling all that. I hope that great defense and a ton of experience. As you get older, you value experience more and more. But I'm hoping experience and defense will bring the Broncos through. I hope.
That's awesome.
But they got their hands full.
Hey, I want to say personally, I want to thank you so much for what a model you were to our community, still are to our community. We haven't pulled the plug on that yet. Yeah. But I'm serious. From setting that up ahead, and you talk about the importance of selflessness, and then you use your time up here to push people to the Mason County football program, which doesn't affect you at all. And I think you're just a fantastic image of who we want our young athletes to grow up to be and who we want our coaches to aspire to be. So thank you so much for joining us here today. Would you give Coach Buchanan a round of applause?
Thank you for having us. Thank you so much.
Wonderful information, Danny. I love the faith, family, education, football, the order of that. Priority, team first. That's great in life. Team first should always be the case for all of us.
For sure. We're excited about the Super Bowl tonight, but Kelly, believe it or not, there's some people that aren't into the Super Bowl. It's hard to believe for me.
Yeah, that's right, Danny. Some folks just aren't into sports, and for those of you that aren't into football and sports, you need a few tips sometimes that maybe you're at a Super Bowl party and you're awkward and you don't know how to handle the situation. So we've got a few tips for you. Let's take a look at the first one here, Danny.
At any point, anytime, simply put your hands out and say, shh.
Yeah. The illusion that you're into the game and want everybody to shut up and watch, it's a great way to decoy everybody. Let's take a look at the second one real quick. For when everyone is bored and conversation is in a lull, say, those Dorito commercials are really lacking this year.
And for a lot of fans, the commercials are the thing.
That's right. If you remember last year, somber commercials. Like I felt like going to the Simon Kenton Bridge and jumping off.
Yep, a lot of times
it was terrible.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll go to work on Monday and say, "What a great game," and they'll go, "Oh, but the
commercial." Yeah, and I'm looking forward to some good commercials this year. Hopefully,
it'll live up to the game. All righty, we're going to head into halftime. We have a lot of coaches here in the church, and one of those coaches we're going to hear from first is Clay Boone, who's the tennis coach at Mason County.
Looking forward to it. Let's take a look at that.
Why does sports matter? Sports foster a lot of leadership abilities in children and adolescents, and it develops that competitive nature in a kid, and it develops the skills, the life skills and the social skills that they need to fundamentally be successful in the future. And it starts with any type of activity, social activity that they're involved in, but sports matters for so many reasons. I'll take an example, just playing tennis, for example. Being able to work on a team and looking out, watching out for the kids around you and watching their success and your teammates' success, it builds confidence in everything that they do. And it carries over into the classroom and it carries over into life, as well as other team sports like football. You always have a winner and loser, and some people say, there's nothing good about losing. But it does teach kids, to be proud of what they've been able to do, and it teaches them to humility, in life, and they learn so many lessons. I'm just glad to have the opportunity to work with so many kids and foster so many young children and young teenagers as they grow up. And sports is something I've grown up with all my life. I started at a young age playing basketball and baseball and tennis and football, and it always built something. It was a building block to everything that I did in life, and it taught me a lot about who I was as an individual. And I hope that we see more kids, not so much on their tablets and on their cell phones, but out on the tennis court or out on the basketball floor or wherever it might be, just being involved in sports. That's why sports matters.
Some of the reasons I think that sports matters, and I think if it's done right, you teach so much to kids, and preparation to me is one of the things. You got to prepare to come to practice and prepare to games, and when you go out in this real life, you want to be prepared. And then you got the dedication part of it, and when you dedicate yourself to come here and become a better player every practice and every game, from the time you start basketball or baseball or whatever sport it is. Make yourself better every time you go out. And when you go out in the real world, you want to make yourself better every day, be a better person every day, better than the day you were before. And as far as basketball is concerned, if you're a player and you go down and you make a mistake, you turn the ball over or shoot and miss a layup, gosh dog, get your butt up and sprint down the floor, get it back to you. Get me a steal. Get me a rebound. Turn your negative into a positive, and I think you take that in the world too, because every day in this world something's going to go wrong and something's going to go bad, and it's not always going to be great. And in that situation, you're going to make mistakes. Turn that mistake into a positive. Turn the negative into a positive. And also how to act when you win. We always talk about acting, how you act when you lose, but there's a way to act when you win, and that takes you right on in the real world. When things are going good for you and you're winning, share some of that. Make somebody feel good around you, because you don't know what they're going through. Everything might be going good in your life, but a smile or a hi, you don't know what that'll do for somebody. And I'll put a plug in for our varsity girls this year. Such a great, great group of girls. And what I hear from people now that go watch them play is not the fact of how great a basketball team they are, but it's how they act and how they respond to every situation. And that means more to me than anything. So, that's why sports matters to me.
What a halftime show, Kelly.
Great as always. Let's give it up for the band again. I mean, goodness gracious. I'm not sure Coldplay could do any better tonight than that.
No way.
And I have a theory on Joel's high notes. I think it has something to do with skinny jeans, Danny.
Could be. Could be.
That's just a theory.
I think you might have it. All right, you ready for some more pro sports tips?
Let's do that. Let's help those folks out that aren't into sports. Go right ahead.
For your own enjoyment, number one, prep by locating and occupying an EEZ, easy escape zone. Number two, frantically shout, fumble. Number three, enjoy panicked expressions. And number four, get out of there.
Classic distraction technique, Danny. It's worked for me before. Let's take a look at the next one. Simply add hashtag Deflategate at the end of every sentence you say. You may not understand, but everyone will just assume you're in on the joke.
Let's see.
You ever use that?
These nachos are stale. Hashtag Deflategate.
Renee's on my back again. Hashtag Deflategate.
The commode stopped up. Hashtag Deflategate.
Works every time, Danny.
Let's move into the third quarter. And our guest for the third quarter is Coach Matt Taylor. He is in his third season as the coach of the St. Patrick Saints boys basketball team. He also coaches soccer and tennis. He played at Harrison County. He graduated from the University of Kentucky, was a graduate assistant at UTEP under Coach Tim Floyd, and UTEP yesterday rallied to beat Brian Payne and Faith's Western Kentucky Hilltoppers.
That's right.
But Matt, I've got to know him here since he moved to town. He's a great guy, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to say. Back to Kevin.
Well, Coach Taylor, it's great to have you here this morning. You're here often greeting and doing the welcome some, but it's nice to have you up here on stage.
Very charged up right now. Joel got me lit.
Yeah, that
was awesome.
That was something.
Was that awesome or what? Jeez.
He burned more energy in 8 minutes than most people will in a 3-hour football game.
I was over there dancing off in the corner.
That was awesome. So I want to get right into it. So we Facebook stalked you a little bit. Hope that was okay.
Thank you very much.
There you go. And you had a post recently that was on basketball, and somebody commented very kindly to you, not everything's about basketball, which I'm sure was meant as a nice, warm, endearing comment. And your response back was great. You said, what if basketball isn't about basketball? What did you mean by that?
Well, there's more to basketball than basketball. Comments have been made kind of towards me about that, and I kind of addressed it that basketball just runs in my family. It's my dad's a Hall of Fame coach. My brother was a Division II All-American. Went on. He's a lawyer now in Lexington. Now I'm coaching. Played for a very successful coach. Went to Rep Arena twice at Harrison County. So it's kind of ingrained in me. But I got to tell you, all that winning and all that success, even in my family, those weren't really the values. Those weren't the things in the structure that was created for me. Really, what was created was accountability and integrity. And I struggle with those things to this day. I'm a little better now that I'm seasoned, but really for me it was so much more than just dribbling a ball and shooting a ball in the basket or making the pass. It was connection, teamwork and hard work and integrity and learning to lose, learning to win with grace, learning about Christ. So much was involved with that. So when I had that parent tell me, well, there's more to basketball. I can't remember what it was, something with regards to so much practice or whatever we were doing. Well, we're teaching a lot, too.
That's awesome. That's great. So you've seen the kind of extreme, more intense side of it. You were a graduate assistant at UTEP under Tim Floyd. What was that like?
It was a very humbling experience. I just got out of the military. I was at Fort Bliss stationed there and just got back from a tour and was about ready to process again. Then I was exiting out of the military and was looking to get into grad school. And my father always taught me, Hall of Fame coach, 10th Region, he always taught me nothing ventured, nothing gained. So if you kids listening, just remember that quote, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And that simply means if you don't even go for your goal, if you don't reach out to your goal, you'll never get one. So I walked right into Coach Floyd's office, requested a meeting with him. He called me back actually 2 weeks later, said come back in, sat down with him. He said, you Army vet? I said, yep. He said, it's good enough for me. And and that's where we took off. I learned a lot. I learned about Division I athletes, phenomenal athletes. You've seen a couple here in this town with Darius and Chris. These guys are very seasoned athletes, very mature in body and mind, and of course they get catered to quite a bit as well. So it was very humbling to see how they get fed and trained. And I was the guy. I was Sarge right out of the Army, so they all called me Sarge. But it was neat to have them call me Coach towards that second year. But I would go around and run them in the Sun Bowl when they didn't show up for class or if they were late for class. So I had an interesting job there, but it was very humbling.
That's interesting. What was that like going from that to going to a smaller school like St. Pat, where the emphasis of the whole school is not as much on sports? Was that said okay? Was that
said it perfectly?
Okay, there you go.
Perfectly.
Woo.
Thank you. Without spitting on it.
Got a little nervous there.
It was interesting. I mean, you get charged up. You're around Greg Foster, who's now the assistant coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. Tim Floyd was 11 years in the NBA. Phil Johnson was assistant on the staff that was under Lute Olson, so any basketball fan in this crowd should know who that is. National championships, players, NBA players. Jabari Parker plays up there. I had an opportunity to meet him. Vincent Hunter is going to deal. You see these players, and me, the frustration was I didn't really decompress when I took the job. I went in there, and I probably have a player or two out there right now, and it's just my intensity level is pretty high. They're not D1 players, so I had to make that adjustment. But the best thing is I was able to do it and kind of hone in on some successes. But it's very it's a trial. It's tough.
Okay, that's great. I want to ask in terms of that intensity and push, less from a coach side, more from a parent side. We hear a lot, just conversations I'm in push or rationalizing an over-intensity for sports, in my opinion, and that's the one that matters because I have the mic right now. But for the pursuit of a college scholarship. Right. And we'll see something like, I'm sure there's plenty of Wildcat fans here. Coach Calipari talks about that a lot of, like, these kids get a scholarship, and then if they take the next step, get drafted, it changes their life, changes their families' lives. And obviously that's true in some cases. What would your comment be on that, just of parents who have maybe an extreme intensity, we won't say over intensity, but extreme intensity for the goal of a college scholarship and rationalizing all the steps along the way for that? What would your thoughts on that be?
Man, it's tough. First, you need working at D1, we see it right away. I think the most glaring thing that you have to look at if you're a parent with a kid that you think has some talent and you think that they have a future at the next level is you've got to assess their academics. I mean, that is like, I think there's a glaring stat that says if you've got about a 3.5 to 3.8, you've got about a 94% chance to get recruited by some college. Once that drops to about, I think, a 3.0, it's cut in half. And you're dealing with a 2.5 to a 2.0, you're looking at 4% of colleges being able to recruit your kid, regardless of their talent level. And they have to be, like, explosive. And from what I understand, Darius and Chris both were excellent students. So, that's got to be first and foremost, is that value system of academia has to be present along with it. It's a holistic kind of thing. Coach Cal is able to get away with it. I mean, he spent time in Memphis, inner city Memphis, and if you know anything about Memphis, I don't know if you've been there, but it's very poor inner city. It's some of the best talent in basketball you could find there. And he made a living off of going in the streets and hitting the beat with a lot of people and pulling some of those kids, and he's had a lot of success. But those guys were phenomenal. Derrick Rose, I mean, they're phenomenal athletes. They're in the NBA, and not to say that he wasn't a good student. I don't know that, but incredible human being nonetheless. But yeah, that's kind of the angle that he's taken. And what is that right or wrong? I think coaches need to kind of take a holistic approach. I'm a huge UK fan, but I think you have to have that holistic approach.
That's good. So important thing for the parents out here, you're saying, yeah, that's fine if you're pushing that, but if you neglect these other areas, they're probably not getting a college scholarship anyway.
Yeah, they're going to be professional in something other than basketball or football or baseball. More, I mean, I'm not a professional coach, but somebody out there, an accountant, engineer. I mean, that's very rewarding. Those are rewarding things. And us as coaches, I don't have that yet. I haven't had kids move on to be lawyers or doctors yet. But when that happens, that's the win for me. That's going to be the win for me is holding their kids 15 years from now or whatever it is, being at their college graduations or UK med school or whatever that is. That's the payoff that I look for. And I tell them that on a daily basis when I can remember to.
That's awesome. How have you seen sports having a positive impact on people's lives?
Oh, it's you can see a lot. I mean, the most glaring thing is there's so many kids out there that don't either have a mother or a father, both either boy or girl, male or female student athletes. It's really a sad story. I think coaches, and you could see from Coach Littleton there at the end when he was giving testament to the girls team, he got kind of choked up. I'm a very emotional guy too, and I dare say that Coach Boone probably is, and a lot of the other coaches, Coach Buchanan. It's tough because we see so much, and the struggle is real. It really is. It's real because you kind of have to play so many parts in these kids' lives, and it's been tough at times, even at St. Pat, and you wouldn't think that. But to be that figure of motivation for them. And the payoff is really when you're laying there about 12 o'clock at night, reading your book, and a text comes through like, thanks for being there for me. And I'm kind of getting a little choked up right now, but that's the payoff.
That's awesome. That's great. Ask for the young athletes who are here, kids, teens who are playing sports, what would your advice be to them?
Joy. Coach Buchanan said her best, and I forgot that in the first service, which is, first of all, you got to love what you're doing. You got to love to play. Love to play the sport, and most of all, develop a work ethic. I mean, nothing comes easy in life. It just doesn't happen. I promise you. There's a lot of fantasy out there that believe that things should just kind of fall in your lap. It's rare. Set some goals. First and foremost, set some goals. Develop that work ethic. If you fail, don't quit. For goodness sakes, don't ever quit at anything that you're doing. Jim Valvano said that to his team, or the 83 Wolfpack, who didn't have a shot at winning it, but they won it. They won it all because they never quit. And that's the thing that you have to do. There's so much quit in society. It's like I wasn't allowed to quit. If I started a season, I had to finish it. I got my bell rung, and I told Coach Buchanan about it in 7th grade. I was like, I'm not playing football anymore. Playing George Rogers Clark, I threw my pads. Dad met me right there on the field, and he said, you're not going to quit. You can sit on that sideline and not play, but you're not going to give up on your teammates. You're not going to give up on your coach or yourself. And that was fundamental for me. So I think that's something that you have to remember.
That's great. All right, so a lot of parents here. What advice would you give to parents?
You would think my dad and my brother's very overbearing. He expects perfection from me at St. Pat. My dad, a little bit. Both of those are key male figures in my life that hate to lose more than they love to win. They say that to the kids all the time. And I do too. I hate to lose more than I love to win. But it's about finding the win and the loss. We can't forget that. But to answer the question you just have to stay with it. You have to stay with it, and you have to be a silent supporter for your kids. My dad was never the type that said, oh, you should have done this, or you should have done that. And I was pretty good. I was a pretty decent high school player. That was the best it got for me. But I did well. But he never did that. He never came to me and said, son, you need to do this better. Or, son, you missed a pass down there in the 3rd quarter. What are you thinking? It was always like, at most, how do you think you did? And if I said I didn't do good, he'd say, well, okay, do better next time. And that was it. But he cheered for everybody. Cheered for every kid on the team. They need that support because they might not be getting it. So
let me ask this. Talking about your dad like that, who was a Hall of Fame coach in the 10th region, you being a basketball player, how did that impact your relationship, him taking that role in your life?
Well, I had to turn to him. I mean, he was certainly a resource, first and foremost. As kids, I mean, these kids won't admit it now, but some of the older people, you realize we have a little bit of pride. I mean, I had tons of it now, and it's a struggle, just like Coach Buchanan said. You battle your egos every day. But, yeah, I mean, he was a resource there for me. But he kind of let the coaches coach. He let Coach Wright do his job. He let Coach Whitaker do his job in middle school basketball and so on and so on. So, he was more of a resource, but a very supportive one.
That's awesome. All right, last question. Who you got tonight?
Well, I'm kind of like Buchanan. I like the Broncos. I get it. I get it. The sexiness of the Carolina. Don't take that too far out of context.
The sexiness of the Panthers.
Their play, their style. I mean, you got the quarterback
of the Panthers.
Okay, I'm up. I'm done. Go for the Broncos. The Broncos deserve to win as much as the other team, but that's who I'm pulling for.
Fantastic. Hey, thank you so much for joining us here. We love having you here.
Thanks
every
for
week.
having
It's
me,
great
guys.
to get you up here. Would you give him a round of applause?
All right.
Thanks, Matt. Zach.
Coach Taylor mentioned that he was in the Army. He served our country in Iraq. We need to thank him for
Yeah,
that.
that's great.
He does have one flaw, though.
One flaw. What's his? No, Coach had the dental flaw. What's Matt's?
He played at Harrison County.
That is a flaw. I love the part about the text in the night, and the connection with the kids, loving the kids, and the learning and losses. Danny, as far as you and I going back in the old days, if we learned from losses, we'd be certifiable geniuses.
Feel like Solomon.
But that's all I got to say about that.
We have another coach here in church. Kevin Fulton is the men's and women's tennis coach at Morehead State University. We're going to hear his video.
Let's take a look.
Sports matter to me because it taught me so many life lessons. It taught me how to have work ethic. It taught me how to believe in myself. It taught me how to handle situations that normally, without sports, I probably wouldn't have figured out by myself. I look at the direction my life could have taken without sports, and I could have gone one of two directions. I could have not had self-esteem. I could have not had self-worth. I could have not figured out that the problem-solving skills that sports gave me, and I could have gone down the wrong side of the street. Sports has given me everything I have in my life, from my job to the wife that I have, the beautiful children I have. I met my wife through sports, and to me, it's so important because we're in a society today where kids have so much information at their fingertips. Sports gives them a way to use it as a problem-solving thing and not just about who wins and who loses. Because at the end of the day, at the end of the game, that stuff won't be remembered. What will be remembered are the journeys you go on, the people you play with, the things and places you see from sports. Without sports, I don't know where I'd be.
Want a little trivia?
I'm always up for trivia, Danny, and you always have a lot of it.
Coach Taylor and Coach Fulton both played for Mike Wrights. Kevin at Maysville and Matt for Harrison County.
Very interesting. That's probably in your book too, right?
It might be.
Yeah, okay. I like your book better than John Wooden's, by the way. Plug.
I'll slip you $1 after.
All right, got it.
Have you liked the sports tips? Have you learned some things today?
I have. There's been a couple that I've used. We've got one more for today for the non-sports fan. Let's see what it says here.
Does it feel like an intense moment? Feel free to point to the screen every once in a while and comment, "This is big." Proceed with a proud brow and stressful complexion while rubbing your hands together like you're hatching a devious plot.
Danny, just recently, not super recent, I was watching Olympic curling, and I used that.
You're a curling fan?
Well, no, I'm not, and that's why I used that.
Okay, all right. You ought to give curling a chance.
Okay, I will.
Let's head into the fourth quarter. Once again, here's Kevin.
Well, in this last segment, I just want to tell you a quick story, and this is more specifically for the parents. And set this up to introduce you to the people's story. In this picture that you're going to see at the top is the Harbaugh family. And the oldest person is Jack Harbaugh and his two sons, Jim and John, who were both in the NFL as coaches at one point in time. Jim is now the coach of the Michigan Wolverines. And in the bottom picture is John Elway, who is an MVP and Super Bowl winning quarterback for the Denver Broncos, and his dad, Jack Elway. I'm sorry that both the dads' names are Jack. I didn't make this up. If I would have switched their names because that'd be easier to remember. So it's John Elway and Jack Elway. And so one day, Jack Harbaugh, guy pictured at the top, as his sons are becoming more famous, as their careers are developing as coaches, he wanted to know what role did he need to play in his sons' lives. And as they're getting into the NFL and they keep getting more and more success, he just kind of wanted to figure out what does it look like for me to be a father to two very, very successful coaches. And so he'd always admired Jack Elway, who was a very successful college football coach. And he'd always admired his relationship with his son, John, even though John kept going on and had more and more success. And so one day he just stopped and he asked him, and he said, "Hey, Jack, what do you do? Like, how did you do it with John? I want to make sure I'm doing it right with my kids. And I see you're successful, and your sons had so much success, but you have a great relationship. So what did you do?" And this was Jack Elway's response. He said, "In your son's life, he'll have many mentors, many coaches, many men to teach and to correct him. He'll only have one father. All you have to do is love him. And in Hebrews 6:19, it says this: we have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. That the thing that is meant to be a constant in our lives, the thing that is meant to steady us more than anything else, was always meant to be our faith. And that as soon as faith slips from that top spot, as Coach Buchanan, Coach Taylor talked about, as soon as faith slips from that top spot and something else or sports creeps in there, then we're in a difficult spot. We're in a spot where we're succumbing to our emotions, our wellness, our health, our life, are succumbing to wins and losses and stat lines and scholarships and all the other things that come with that. But when you put as your rock, as your foundation, as your primary priority, your faith, everything else flows from that. And so more than anything else, we hope this morning is that we have actually started a conversation about maybe how much is too much, how far is too far. But looking at sports not as just good or bad, but as a vehicle, as a vessel to do other things in our lives. And this is my personal opinion, that when we view sports as a game, when we view sports, whatever level they are, as a game, they have an incredible power to do good in people's lives. They have a phenomenal ability to teach us about what it looks like to win well, what it looks like to lose graciously, what it looks like to develop a lack of self-centeredness, a focus on a team in our lives, what it looks like to develop hard work and all the character values that come with it in a true definition of success. That when we view sports as a game, they have the power in our lives to influence all of that. But as soon as they become more than that, as soon as they become our lives, they lose their ability to do good. And so we hope that you've heard that the one thing that should be the focus and the center on your lives is your faith. And if anything else serves as the anchor, then we're in a rough spot. So, for the last time, back to the booth.
Great service.
It was very good, Danny. Enjoyable. A lot of great information from both coaches and Kevin. Let's throw it back down to Brian and see what the field and the crowd is.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I really hadn't spoken to anybody tonight or today around here, but if I did, I'm sure they would say the band was great and speakers were great, coaches' videos were awesome, and that sports really do matter when parents and coaches make it more than just about sports. And I really feel that with the exception, I guess, of Scott Skaggs, most everyone enjoyed it.
We would like to thank everybody for being here today, for taking your time on this Sunday morning to join us at Cross Point. We have a gift for any first-time guests. Go out to the welcome table on your way out and get that gift, please. And next week we'll be starting a new series called Heroes Get Remembered, Legends Never Die. So we're looking forward to that.
For Kelly Ferris and Brian Payne, Danny Weddle saying good morning from Cross Point Community Church.